This happened a few weeks ago. I had just moved into an old Victorian house. I was excited about my new start. The place was charming, but definitely needed repairs. I figured a little fixing up would make it my own. On the third night, I was lying in bed when I heard a soft tapping from the attic. It was rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I thought, it's just an old house. So I pulled the covers over my head and went back to sleep. But then it got worse. Each night the tapping turned into louder thuds. It kept me awake, and I started to feel on edge. My two cats, Max and Lulu, acted strange too. They would sit in the living room, staring at nothing, and then suddenly hiss. It made me nervous. I couldn't understand what they were sensing. One evening, while I worked on a design project, I noticed a flickering light coming from the attic. My heart raced as I grabbed my flashlight. I climbed the stairs slowly, each creak of the floor sending chills down my spine. In the attic, I found a single light bulb swinging back and forth. I was alone. It felt off. I turned to leave, but then saw something on the floor. An old diary. I picked it up, dust swirling around me. The pages were yellowed, filled with shaky handwriting. The owner wrote about shadows that moved and whispering voices. I was drawn in, even as my stomach twisted. I should have put it down, but I couldn't. After that night, things got worse. The thuds became a nightly routine. Every time I tried to sleep, they echoed through the house. I avoided the attic, locking the door tightly. I needed peace. But one night, I heard a whispering voice. It sounded so close, like it was right beside me. My heart pounded. I turned quickly, but no one was there. My cats were huddled in the corner, wide-eyed and frightened. I didn't know what to think anymore. I tried to brush it off, but it felt like the house was full of pressure. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I started clenching my fists when I felt the air go cold. Another night, I sat on the couch with my cats. Their tension held me tight. Suddenly, I felt a brush of cold air across my neck. I froze. It moved through me like ice. I leaped to my feet but saw nothing. Nothing but shadows dancing in the dim hall. I thought I might be losing my mind. But every unexplained noise just reminded me that this house had a secret. Just the idea scared me. After reading the diary, I didn't want to discover what really happened to the last owner. I felt trapped and felt I wasn't alone. Now, I sit here trying to feel safe. But night after night, the thuds come. And I question whether I belong here at all. I want to feel at home. But the whispers linger and the shadows deepen. Am I alone? Only time will tell. That night, I lay in bed, unwilling to close my eyes. The shadows in my room felt thicker than usual, and the thuds from above seemed to echo in my mind. I couldn't help but replay the contents of the diary. The owner had mentioned a funeral held in the house decades ago. It seemed like just a detail until I felt a chill creep over me. The next day, I decided to do some digging. I walked over to the local library. It was a quaint place, filled with history. I approached the librarian, a kind older woman, who seemed to sense my unease right away. "Can I help you with something?" she asked, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. I hesitated, unsure how to frame my request. "I'm looking for information about a house. An old Victorian near Wilshire Street." Her expression changed. "Ah, that one. It has quite the history. What do you want to know?" "Everything," I replied, trying to sound braver than I felt. I wanted to uncover the truth, but wasn't prepared for what she would say. As she pulled out a heavy book filled with newspaper clippings, she began recounting stories about the house. There were tales of misfortune and sorrow. One part caught my attention. A family had lived there decades ago, and one of the daughters disappeared under mysterious circumstances. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was connected to the thuds and whispers. I left the library with more questions than answers. When I got home, I decided to confront the attic. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to find, or if I wanted to find anything at all, but I felt compelled to look. I grabbed my flashlight, taking a deep breath to steady my nerves. As I climbed the stairs, the familiar creak of the floorboards pierced the silence. This time, I unlatched the door, the click sounding louder in the quiet. The attic was suffocated with dust. I stepped inside, light illuminating the same old boxes and forgotten belongings. I scanned the room. The diary lay on the floor, tempting me to open it once again. It felt heavier in my hands this time, as if it knew the weight of its secrets. I flipped through the pages, tracing the owner's frantic writing, trying to grasp the feeling of the past that wrapped around me like a fog. That's when I saw it. The corners of the room seemed to darken as I read a line about a hidden place where one might find what was lost. A sense of urgency washed over me. The whispers swelled, growing louder, begging me to look closer. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from behind me. I whirled around, heart racing. I shined my flashlight but saw nothing, just darkness. I felt something shift behind me, a presence I couldn't see. My breath caught in my throat. Then everything went dark. The light flickered and died, leaving me in a suffocating void. Panic set in. I fumbled for my phone, hoping its glow could break the silence. I needed light. But the moment I turned it on, I heard the whispers again, clearer and more desperate. It was as if they were pleading for me to uncover the truth. I stood frozen, knowing I had stepped too far into something I didn't understand. That was the moment I realized whatever was in this house wasn't ready to let me go. I had to find out what happened to that girl. But now, the fear gripped me tighter than ever. Was I equipped to face what lay in the shadows? What was waiting for me if I chose to dig deeper? I stood in the dark attic, heart pounding. The weight of the diary felt heavy in my hands. The whispers surrounded me, intensifying. They were urgent, almost frantic. I knew I couldn't just stand there. I needed to do something. So, I forced myself to move. With my phone's light casting eerie shadows on the walls, I began searching through the dusty boxes. I stumbled upon an old trunk, locked but showing signs of age and neglect. My instincts screamed at me to let it be, but curiosity tugged at me. I felt that whatever was in there could be a clue, maybe even a piece of this twisted puzzle. I rifled through the other boxes around me. There were clothes, pictures, and scraps of what looked like old letters. The letters hinted at conflicts and family struggles, but most were unreadable due to water damage. As I picked up a faded photograph, the voice grew louder, sharper. "Help me!" The whisper was so close it felt like a breath on my neck. I turned, but nothing was there. My skin crawled. Searching frantically, I found a small box near the trunk. Its lid was slightly ajar. I opened it and found an assortment of old keys. Some were ornate, others simple, but each seemed to hold a story. My heart raced. Could one of these unlock the trunk? I found myself rattling the keys, a flicker of hope igniting in me. I tried several before one clicked perfectly into the trunk's lock. I hesitated, recalling the stories from the librarian. Did I really want to uncover what lay inside? But the thought of the missing girl propelled me forward. I lifted the lid slowly, the creaking echoing ominously. Inside, I discovered old clothing, a diary, and a locket. The locket caught my eye. It gleamed in the beam of my light. Hesitantly, I picked it up. It felt surprisingly warm in my hand. When I opened it, a small picture of the girl who went missing stared back at me. Her eyes were hauntingly familiar, and a wave of sadness washed over me. That felt important. But then a chill coursed through the attic, snuffing out my phone's light. My heart raced. I fumbled for it, the darkness enveloping me like a thick blanket. The whispers curled around my ears, transforming into urgent cries, almost angry now. "No! No! You mustn't!" What was happening? Panic surged. I dropped the locket and scrambled toward the door. But before I could reach it, I heard something shift behind me. The sound of heavier footsteps, deliberate and slow. I froze. I wasn't alone. Then, out of the darkness, a shadow materialized. It was just an outline, but the sense of dread filled the air. The presence loomed closer, and I could almost feel its weight pressing down on me. I thought about running, but instead, I stood rooted to the spot, knowing I could not back down now. I had unearthed something vital, yet I had no idea of the danger I was in. My only option was to confront it. "Who are you?" I stammered, voice trembling in the silence. But in response, the shadow moved closer, almost as if it were reaching for me. And then, I felt it, a cold breath against the back of my neck. I gasped, spinning around. What was coming next? And would I survive to uncover the truth? I stood frozen, my mind racing. The shadow loomed before me, dark and shapeless, a presence sending shivers down my spine. The air grew colder, thick as if it were alive. Panic washed over me, but curiosity anchored my feet to the floor. Who, or what, was this? Then I heard a whisper. Softer, yet distinct. "Help me." The words felt like a plea, echoing around me. I clutched the old trunk, using it as a shield. I couldn't let fear paralyze me. Summoning all the courage I could muster, I managed to speak again. "What do you want?" My voice seemed small against the enormity of the darkness. The shadow hesitated. For a brief moment, the air stilled. I held my breath, waiting for a response. Suddenly, a flash of light flickered in the corner of the attic, illuminating dusty beams and forgotten corners. The shadow shifted, morphing at the edges. I squinted, trying to see through the darkness. That's when I saw it. A glint of something metallic near the edge of the attic floor. My heart raced. Another clue? I glanced back at the shadow. It hadn't moved, but I felt its intensity sharpening, like it was urging me to investigate. With a deep breath, I stepped away from the trunk and towards the shimmering object. Each step felt like a betrayal, as if I were walking deeper into the unknown. My flashlight flickered back to life unexpectedly, revealing a small key, much like the ones I'd found before, but decorated with intricate patterns. I knelt down to pick it up, a cold sweat erupting on my forehead. When I straightened, the shadow had returned to its original position. I thought I could make out a face forming in the darkness, but I didn't dare blink. My fingers wrapped around the key, its cool metal grounding me. This key could be the solution, the answer to something much bigger than I understood. Suddenly, a loud creak jolted me from my thoughts. I spun around, feeling the air grow heavier again. The attic door had swung shut, sealing me in with the shadow. I rushed back toward the trunk, heart racing. This couldn't be it. I couldn't be trapped. "Why are you doing this?" I called out in desperation. "What happened to the girl?" The shadow swirled, almost as if gathering itself into a more defined shape. A voice broke through the silence, this time clearer. "Find me," it urged, before the shadow suddenly dissipated, leaving the attic still and dark once more. The words echoed in my mind, a command and a plea mixed together. I felt torn. Should I leave? Should I continue? The sensation of being watched returned as the silence pressed in, but the mystery hung there, tangible and urgent. With the key in hand and the whispers echoing in my ears, I felt the pull of the locket and the diary. I had to know more. But as I looked back at the darkness that had consumed the shadow, a chilling thought crossed my mind. What if that presence was not just a guardian of secrets, but a warning? Before I could consider that further, I heard another sound. Footsteps from the stairway leading up to the attic. I barely had time to react. Someone else was coming, and I didn't know if they were friend or foe. I pressed myself against the trunk, heart hammering in my chest as I strained to listen. The footsteps were slow and deliberate, echoing up the worn stairs. Whoever it was, they were taking their time. I scanned the darkness, searching for a hiding spot. But there was only the trunk beside me, old and dusty, just barely taller than my knees. The doorknob rattled, and my stomach dropped. I crouched lower, clutching the key tightly. Maybe I could sneak out once the person came in, if that door was the only way in. I felt a wave of dread. What if they had come here for me? The door creaked open, and a figure stepped into the attic. Wielding a small flashlight, the beam cut through the darkness, revealing old boxes and cobwebs. But not me. Yet. My breath caught in my throat as the figure began to look around, searching. At that moment, I recognized them. "Ashley?" I whispered, disbelief flooding me. Why was she here? "Is anyone up here?" she called out, albeit hesitantly. "I saw the light." Her voice was barely above a whisper, as if she too was afraid of something lurking in the shadows. I chose that moment to reveal myself. "It's me, I'm here." I stepped out cautiously, relief washing over me like a balm. Ashley jumped back at the sudden appearance of my figure in the dim light. "You scared me!" she exclaimed, trying to laugh, but her eyes were wide with concern. "What are you doing in the attic?" "There's so much going on," I rushed to explain, gesturing toward the clutter. "I found a shadow. A presence. And this key. I think it has something to do with the girl from the diary." Ashley's expression shifted from apprehension to curiosity as she moved closer. "A key? What do you think it opens?" "I don't know yet." I held it out to her, the intricate patterns glinting in the flashlight beam. "I think it might be important. But the shadow, it wanted me to—" Before I could finish, a low rumble echoed through the attic, a sound I hadn't heard before. The floor below us shook slightly, dust raining down from the rafters. I could see panic flicker across Ashley's face. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice barely making it over the noise, anxiety creeping into her tone. "I don't know," I admitted, eyes darting toward the door. The threat of what lay beyond felt more real. "We have to get out of here." Just as I turned back to grab her hand, the room plunged into darkness. The flashlight flickered, and then went out. We were engulfed in a cold, suffocating stillness. "Stay close," I murmured, panic rising again. I could barely see the outline of Ashley beside me. "Whatever was up here is not finished with us yet." I could hear her breathing, sharp and quick. But then the air thickened. The sense of being watched returned tenfold. As I groped around for the trunk, I felt ice-cold fingers brush against my arm. "Did you—" I began, but Ashley's scream cut me off. "Something's here!" The noise reverberated around us, and without the flashlight's beam to guide us, we stumbled blindly in the dark, desperate to escape whatever waited in the shadows. I felt my heart race in the darkness. "Ashley, we need to find the door," I shouted, my voice strained with urgency. She grasped my arm, her touch grounding me, but fear pulsed through me like a live wire. We maneuvered through the clutter, shuffling sideways in the dark. My fingertips brushed against the rough edges of the wooden boxes. My mind flashed back to the shadow I had seen earlier, the nagging feeling that it was still lurking, waiting for us to make a mistake. "Here, this way." Ashley pulled me toward what felt like a wall, and suddenly I realized it was the doorframe. "I can't find the handle. Just keep feeling for it," I urged, anxiety spiking with every second that passed. "Focus!" Just then, I heard a faint scratching sound, like fingernails on wood. It sent ice coursing through my veins. "Ashley, do you hear that?" "What is that?" Her voice trembled, and her grip tightened around my arm. "I don't know." I couldn't keep the panic out of my voice. "It's coming from behind us." A shadow shifted, darkening the space even more, and I felt the air grow colder. "We need to go," I rasped, adrenaline firing through me. I reached out blindly, my fingers finally brushing against the door handle. With a desperate turn, I flung the door open. It creaked loudly, and the sudden contrast of light hit us, illuminating the stairway leading down. "Go!" I shouted, and we didn't hesitate. We bolted down the steps, stumbling into the living room. As the door slammed shut behind us, I leaned against it, breathing heavily. The house was silent now, but the eerie feeling lingered, heavy in the air. "Did you see it?" Ashley murmured, anxiety etched on her face. "No," I replied, swallowing hard. "But I felt it." I closed my eyes, trying to calm the whirl of thoughts in my head. "The key. I think it has something to do with that girl from the diary. Maybe it leads to a place that explains all this." Ashley's brow furrowed in confusion. "What girl? And why is everything so weird?" I bit my lip, reeling from the weight of everything I hadn't told her. "The diary I found in the attic. It belonged to a girl named Clara. She disappeared years ago." "Okay, but what does that have to do with us?" Ashley glanced toward the attic door. The worry in her eyes mirrored my own. "Maybe she's still here. Maybe she's linked to this house somehow," I said, trying to draw the threads of fear together. The shadow seemed sad, but also angry. There has to be a reason it didn't want us here. "No." Ashley shook her head vigorously. "We don't need to go back up there. We should just leave and call someone." No, I insisted, feeling a flare of determination. We have to understand what's happening. If we leave now, who knows what could happen to Clara. Or to us. Ashley's gaze met mine, uncertainty battling with a flicker of curiosity. All right, but let's be careful. My pulse quickened again, but it was different this time. I felt a spark of resolve inside me. Let's find out what that key opens. Maybe it's our only chance to get answers. That's when I noticed a faint glow coming from the hallway. An unearthly light flickered, beckoning me to investigate. With a shared look of trepidation, we stepped forward. The real story was just beginning. The glow intensified as we approached, illuminating the hallway with a pale, shimmering light. It danced along the walls, casting moving shadows that twisted and turned like trapped spirits. I hesitated, feeling the weight of dread settle back over me. "What do you think it is?" Ashley whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "I have no idea," I replied. "But it feels alive." As we drew closer, the light flickered again, revealing a small table adorned with objects I hadn't noticed before. There was a dusty old mirror, its surface cloudy with age, a small music box with intricate carvings, and something that looked like an antique locket. All of them seemed to hum with energy, as if waiting to be touched. "Should we?" Ashley asked, her eyes darting between the items. I felt drawn to the locket, its delicate chain glinting in the light. When I reached out, a sudden chill swept through the air, making me shiver. Maybe we shouldn't touch anything until we know more. But before I could pull back, I felt the cool metal against my fingertips. The moment I made contact, the glow intensified, and a wave of memories flooded my mind. Images of a girl laughing, hiding, and then a shifting shadow that brought a sense of loss. "Did you see that?" I gasped, stumbling back as the vision faded. I could still hear the echo of laughter in my ears. "What just happened?" Ashley's eyes were wide, filled with both fear and wonder. I think I saw Clara," I stammered, trying to make sense of it. "She was happy, but then something happened. It was like she was trying to warn me." Ashley looked at me, her worry deepening. "This is getting really strange. Do we even know if Clara is, safe?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I have to believe she's trapped here, like the shadow we saw. Maybe the locket is a clue." Just then, the air around us grew heavier, and the door we had shut behind us rattled violently. I turned sharply, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" I asked, heart racing. Ashley nodded, panic spreading across her face. "What if it's trying to come in?" Before I could speak, the rattling stopped. Silence filled the hallway, thick and suffocating. The glow from the table dimmed, leaving just enough light to cast an ominous shadow. I felt the locket clutch tightly in my hand, and suddenly it felt warm, pulsing like it was alive. "Maybe we should go back," Ashley suggested, her voice wavering. "No," I replied, insistent. "We can't leave now. We're so close." But just as I said that, I noticed something creeping into the corner of my vision. A new shadow emerged in the hallway, darkening the space once again. "Look!" I yelled, pointing. We both turned just as the shadow took form, morphing into a figure that loomed menacingly in the glow. "Run!" I shouted, and we dashed down the hallway, the sound of footsteps echoing behind us. Somewhere behind us, a whisper filled the air, barely audible but unmistakably clear. "You shouldn't have come here." We raced for the nearest door, my heart pounding in rhythm with the adrenaline coursing through me. What awaited us next would change everything. We dashed down the hallway, adrenaline coursing through our veins. The footsteps behind us grew louder, heavy and relentless. I glanced back for just a moment, hoping to see nothing but empty shadows. Instead, the figure was closer, its dark shape pressing forward, almost gliding silently despite the weight of its presence. "Faster," I urged Ashley, peering ahead for any refuge. The narrow passageway stretched on endlessly, lined with doors that offered no solace. Fear tightened around my throat as I pulled Ashley along. I spotted a door at the end of the corridor, slightly ajar. "There!" I shouted, pointing. We reached it in a few frantic strides. I shoved the door open, and we leaped inside, slamming it shut behind us. Breathing hard, I leaned against the wooden door, bracing myself as I listened for any signs of the figure. The room was dim, filled with dust motes dancing in the sparse light that seeped through a grimy window. Old furniture sat in cluttered disarray. A disheveled bed, a cracked dresser, and walls adorned with peeling wallpaper created a suffocating feeling of neglect. "What now?" Ashley panted, her breath shaky. I glanced around, searching for anything that might give us a clue or protect us. "We need to find a way out of here," I replied, panic creeping back into my voice. That's when I noticed it. A faded photograph on the dresser. I stepped closer, brushing off dust. My heart raced as I picked it up. It showed a group of children, all smiles and bright faces. But one girl caught my attention. She looked so much like Clara, but older, with a mischievous grin that was hauntingly familiar. "Look at this," I said, turning the photo toward Ashley. "Is that Clara?" she asked, squinting to see. "I think it might be," I replied, a chill running down my spine. I flipped the photo over, hoping for a date or a name. Instead, I found a word scrawled in faded ink. "Beware." Ashley's eyes widened. "What does that mean?" Before I could answer, I heard a soft thud against the door we had entered through. My heart sank. The figure was trying to force its way in. "What do we do?" Ashley cried, frantically looking for another exit. I scanned the room and noticed a small window near the ceiling. It was narrow, but it might lead to the outside. "Help me up!" I shouted, adrenaline sharpening my focus. Ashley grabbed my waist and I hoisted myself onto the dresser. I reached for the window, pushing against the frame. My fingers felt slick with grime as I pried it open. "Quick!" I urged as I squeezed my body through, scraping against the rough edges. I could hear the door creaking as the figure pounded harder. I tumbled out onto the ground, breathless. I looked back, and Ashley was halfway through the window. Just then, a loud crash filled the room. The door shuttered, and I saw the shadow lurch into view, its form shifting and undulating as if it were not quite human. "Go!" I yelled as I grabbed Ashley's arm and pulled her free from the window. We stumbled backward, trying to put distance between us and whatever was inside that room. "What was that?" Ashley gasped, eyes wide with fear. I had no answer. The darkness seemed to shift ominously in the direction of the house. We needed to get far away, but I felt rooted to the spot, knowing whatever was in there was not done with us yet. Suddenly, a giggle echoed in the air, crisp and inviting, slicing through the tension like glass. I froze, recognition dawning. It was Clara's laugh, clear and mischievous. Had she been here all along? "Clara!" I called out, desperation spilling into my voice. But the only reply was that haunting giggle, which filled me with an equal measure of hope and dread. I felt a shiver run down my spine as the giggle faded into silence. "Clara?" I repeated, my voice trembling. Ashley looked at me, eyes wide, clearly torn between hope and fear. "Maybe we should follow it," she suggested, glancing down the path we had come from. "Are you crazy?" I replied. "That thing is still in there." But the giggle tugged at me, a mix of nostalgia and urgency. "We can't just leave now. What if she needs help?" Before Ashley could respond, the shadows around the house twisted, like dark tendrils reaching for us. "We have to move. Now," I insisted, not waiting for her answer. We crept toward the bushes lining the side of the house, hoping to stay hidden from whatever lurked within. The laugh echoed again, this time closer, and oddly it sounded sad instead of playful. "Clara!" I called out again, stepping a little farther into the dim light. "Where are you?" Ashley tugged at my sleeve, panic etched on her face. "We should just go. It's not worth it." But I couldn't shake the pull I felt. "What if she's trapped? She needs us." Just then, a flicker of movement caught my eye from the backyard. I could see a figure just beyond the trees, a small silhouette slipping between the trunks. My heart jumped. "There!" Before I could take another step, a loud crash came from inside the house, rattling the windows and turning the air electric. I turned back just in time to see the shadow dart backward, disappearing into the trees. Without thinking, I bolted in the direction of the figure, my heart pounding in sync with my footsteps. "Clara!" I shouted again, louder this time. Ashley followed, albeit hesitantly. "Wait! What if it's a trap?" she yelled. But I was already too far away to hear. I pushed through the underbrush, branches snapping underfoot. The trees closed in around me, casting eerie shadows on the ground. I could feel something watching from the darkness, eyes on my back. "Clara!" I yelled once more, desperation rising. Then everything went dark. I stumbled, falling into a small clearing filled with moonlight. The atmosphere shifted from menacing to surreal as I found myself staring at an ancient tree, twisted and gnarled beyond recognition. It was the kind of tree out of a fairy tale, aloof and haunting. And there, beneath its sprawling branches, knelt a girl. Her back was turned, long hair flowing down like a waterfall. She wore a simple white dress that looked old-fashioned, reminiscent of the era in the photo. "Clara," I whispered, hope flooding in. At the sound of my voice, the girl turned around slowly, revealing a face that stopped my heart. It was Clara, but her eyes were dark and hollow, as if a storm raged inside them. Her lips parted, but instead of a laugh, a whisper came out, chilling me to the bone. "You shouldn't have come here." Before I could respond, I felt a tug at my waist. Ashley had caught up, and her hand grasped mine tightly like a lifeline. "What is going on?" she asked, her voice shaky. Clara's focus shifted, and a smirk spread across her face, unnatural and unsettling. "You should have listened." Before I could react, the world around me wobbed, and the shadows poured in, consuming the light. I could feel a presence looming, closing in like a vice. Then everything went black. My last thought was the echo of Clara's laugh, now twisted and sinister, haunting me even in darkness. I came to with a jolt, gasping for air. My heart hammered in my chest as I blinked against the harsh fluorescent lights of a hospital room. I could hear the steady beeping of a heart monitor, the scent of antiseptic flooding my senses. Panic set in. Where was Ashley? As I scanned the room, my body stiffened. I was alone. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my feet hitting the cold, tiled floor. I felt an odd sense of disorientation, like waking from a vivid dream but lingering on the edge of confusion. Had everything with Clara, the shadow, and the house really happened? I took a moment to collect myself, rubbing my temples as I tried to make sense of my surroundings. That's when I noticed the locket lying on the bedside table. I reached for it, my fingers trembling. It looked exactly like the one I had found in the trunk, the one with Clara's photo. The memories rushed back, flooding my mind, and a flicker of fear pulsed through me. "Where am I?" I mumbled aloud to no one. That's when a nurse poked her head in, a warm smile on her face. "You're awake," she said gently. "You gave everyone quite a scare." "What happened?" I asked, urgency creeping into my voice. "Where's Ashley?" The nurse's expression shifted slightly. "Ashley is fine, just worried about you. You both collapsed near the old Victorian house. Some folks found you and called for help." A sense of relief washed over me, but a million questions still swirled in my mind. The house? The shadow? Clara? What about Clara? The nurse frowned, concern etching lines across her face. "You'll need to rest. It's all a bit much to take in. I've seen a lot of strange things, but you were delusional when you arrived. We might have to talk to someone about that." "Delusional?" I echoed, incredulity rising. "I wasn't—" "Ashley said you were having night terrors." I shook my head, feeling my grip on reality slip. "No, please, I saw her. Clara, she—" But the nurse cut me off gently. "Let's give you some time. I'll fetch the doctor." As she left, I felt a mix of frustration and fear. It wasn't just dreams or imagination. I remembered Clara, the presence and the urgency wrapped around me, beckoning me to help. I needed to find out what really happened. Minutes passed, and finally, the door opened again. I raised my head, hoping to see Ashley, but instead, it was a doctor with a professional demeanor. "You're doing well," he said, flipping through my chart. "Just some mild shock and dehydration. Nothing too serious." I felt a knot tighten in my throat. What does that mean? Was it real? The shadows? The girl? The doctor's expression softened. Sometimes, in highly stressful situations, Our minds create pathways that engage fear responses. It's not uncommon for people to believe they've experienced supernatural events. I wanted to scream, to argue, to insist that it had all been real. Just when I seemed on the verge of saying something, the door swung open again, and in walked Ashley, relief flooding her face. "You're awake!" I saw her marshmallow-like warm smile, and it anchored me for a moment. "Ashley," I murmured, desperation leaking into my voice. "I thought—" I know," she interrupted, rushing to my side. "They told me what happened. I was so scared. I felt something. The shadow... I hesitated. "Did you see Clara? Or hear her?" Ashley's brows knitted together. "Clara? I don't remember seeing anyone when we collapsed. Just darkness and then... this." Confusion wrapped itself around my mind. "But she—" "I think you were exhausted," Ashley said soothingly. "We've been through a lot. The house is gone, and we're out of that nightmare together." "Out of the house?" I repeated, stunned. "But what about the key and the locket?" As I grasped the locket tightly, a flicker of warmth slipped through. The hum of something alive pulsed within it, beckoning to me. "Do you still have it?" Ashley asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Yes, it's here," I said, heart racing. "What did you feel when we were there?" "I don't know," she murmured, glancing at the floor. "It's all hazy. Just a strange feeling, deep down." "What if we never really left the shadow behind?" I pondered, fear creeping back in. "Don't say that," Ashley urged. "We survived." But as I looked into her eyes, I saw a flicker of uncertainty too, and the unease simmered just below the surface. Later that evening, once I was cleared to leave, we made our way home. The comfortable familiarity of my apartment, almost a stark contrast to the events of the last days. We talked more about the house, but the stories grew muddied, like distant echoes. Days turned into weeks, yet the lingering sense of being watched followed me, like a shadow that refused to fade. I tried to forget and move on, but each time the wind howled outside, or the light flickered just so, I felt that unmistakable cold chill creep in. I knew we might have escaped the physical dangers, but Clara's whispers still reached out from the shadows. I wasn't sure if it was supernatural or just a product of our minds, but the question hung heavy in the air. Some nights, I'd look out the window into the trees nearby, searching for just a glimpse of something lost among them. But I always found nothing. The deeper truths seemed hidden still, like Clara herself, sealed away beneath a heavy blanket of unanswered questions. Moving on might have been what everyone expected, but for me, I knew the story wasn't over. Not yet.